Hey guys, welcome back to Jess Reads Romance. I'm Jessin, and today I'm going to be doing another weekly wrap-up of all the books that I read in the past week, and I have quite a few. I binged a lot of books like the day after I filmed my last weekly wrap-up, and then the historical romance readathon happened this week, so I just had a lot of books on my hands and I flew through them, and I'm so excited to let you guys know what I thought about them. I won't be going into like great detail of the books that I read for the historical romance readathon because the vlog is coming tomorrow, so you'll get to know my in-depth thoughts. I'll just let you know what I rated them and just my general thoughts about it. So the first book that I read was Roommate by Serena Bowen. This was on my most anticipated list for 2021, and I'm really excited to get another romance by Serena Bowen. As some of you guys may know, him is one of my favorite romances of all time. I think that nobody could really pass up Westme in my heart, but Roderick and Kieran really did try, and I really did enjoy their love story. It was a little bit angstier because Kieran was struggling a lot with his own sexuality, and he's one of those silent broody types. And he and Roderick kind of have a history. He was a voyeur in high school. He caught Roderick with another guy in the football team, like under the bleachers, and that wasn't even the first time that he caught Roderick. The second time he actually saw them slipping away from like a football game or whatever, or pep rally or something, and he followed them because he was like so fascinated by what was happening. So his family has no idea about him and what his sexual preferences are. And he and his father have a really tough relationship, even him and his brother. And we see both Kieran and his brother Kyle in Bittersweet and a couple of the other books from the True North series, but it's just so heartbreaking how Kieran just felt like he wanted to be an artist. His father didn't take him seriously, wanted him to work on the farm, even though Kyle's the older brother and Kyle's the one that's going to inherit the farm. He's pretty lax about it and doesn't really stand up to his father. Kyle doesn't, and he wants to implement some changes. His father's getting older and he's having back problems. He has to have back surgery, and Kyle has some ideas that they can diversify in the farm and hopefully make it more profitable, and he just wants to follow in Griff's footsteps because Griff diversified his apple orchard and stuff and started making cider. So Kieran works as a graphic artist, and he's trying to save up money to go to college, and he's trying to do it slowly. But he also works part-time at the bakery. Audrey and, oh my god, I'm gonna forget her name. Oh, she was the heroine for Fireworks, or was it Speakeasy? I can't remember. I read the True North series a while back, and Bittersweet was my favorite one of them, so of course I remember Audrey. But anyway, he works part-time, and Roderick is down on his luck. He just got out of a bad relationship. He goes back to his hometown. His parents do not accept his sexuality, and I felt like that aspect of it was pretty depressing. Both of these guys, I mean, Roderick wasn't hiding his sexual preferences, but he was like so down on his luck. He just escaped this kind of abusive relationship from Nashville, and his parents rejected him when he returns home, and he's homeless, and he's trying to find a job, trying to make it work. So like his story was pretty depressing, even though he was like a light and bubbly personality. He and Kieran were like grumpy and sunshine. Roderick was the sunshine part of it, and they end up by being roommates because Kieran at first does not want Roderick around because it makes him uncomfortable because Roderick knows that Kieran had spied on him. So anyway, it's a roommate situation, so forced proximity ends up by making the sexual tension too much for them to ignore. And it was a really sweet romance, but like I said, it was a little too angsty. I could have done without a lot of like the guilt and the shame aspect of it. It was just a lot. So anyway, I liked it, 4 stars. Then if you guys did not watch my video on Cora Riley and her mafia romance series, Born in Blood and the Kimura Chronicles, then I started that. I started Bound by Vengeance. This was the first book, like the crossover book, because the hero and the heroine start off in Vegas, and they're part of the Kimura Las Vegas mafia family, and I was like, interesting, why are we in Vegas? We're still in the Born in Blood series, which follows the outfit and the Familia, who are based in New York and Chicago, but it all makes sense. I really love this. This is like a scarred hero. He is this enforcer. He's like a boogeyman. I mentioned in my video that he reminds me of John Wick. He even has some dogs to go with it, and oh my god, I love a man with dogs. He rescued these dogs from the fighting ring. They were too old to continue to fight, and they would have been put down, so he rescued rescued them, and I'm just like, I love a man who rescues dogs and who's like a dog person. But anyway, he's gifted his heroine because her family is a trader. Her father was a trader. And Benedetto gifted Kara to Growl kind of as payback. Kara is kind of struggling with her attraction to Growl because she is in a captor-captive situation. So she has to come to terms with that. But she finds out that Growl is pretty much a victim in all this anyway. He is, you know, the enforcer. So he has a lot of blood on his hands. But I love him. He's my sweet baby angel. I love him so much. He just breaks my heart, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave this one 4.5 stars. It's probably one of the highest ratings from the Born in Blood series, aside from Bound by Temptation, which is Liliana and Romero's book. Then I read Bound by Love, which is the second book featuring Arya and Luca. You get a lot of the same scenes that happen in the first 4 books, but told through both Arya and Luca's point of view. We didn't get Luca's point of view in Bound by Honor, but we get it here. And Arya really frustrated me. She wasn't my favorite in Bound by Honor, but like she was in such crazy circumstances that I kind of forgave her. She's pretty young, so I was like, I'm willing to let it slide. You're just not my favorite heroine. And then I read Bound by Love, and then I was like, I really kind of despise Arya. So she is my least favorite. This is like my least favorite book by Cor Riley. Second to least favorite book. That's how I rank them. It's my second to least favorite book by Cor Riley in both the Born in Blood series and the Kimura Chronicles. Arya is just a menace, and I cannot see her as a good fit for the wife of a mob boss, and it just does not compute. And poor Luca is just has to clean up a lot of her messes, and I feel bad for him. And then after I finished all those books, because the chronological order that you should read Cor Riley's books, it's weird because like after Bound by Love, there's 2 more books in that series, in the Born in Blood series, but you really need to go to the Kimura Chronicles first before you read those. So I started Twisted Loyalties, which is Fabiano, and Fabiano is Arya, Gianna, and Liliana's little brother, and he has defected to the Kimura, and his love interest is Leona, and she is not part of this mafia world. She is completely separate from it, and I really like that difference in relationship, because a lot of the girls who are involved in the mafia families, they're guarded as prized like possessions to be traded by their fathers, and so they're very sheltered. They're not very worldly. A lot of them can be meek. Not Gianna. She's not meek. She's crazy. But I really love seeing somebody who is just not part of that world, and they accidentally fell in with somebody who was part of the world. So Leona accidentally meets Fabiano because Fabiano notices that she's on the street, not dressed for the weather in Las Vegas, and it's raining, and he offers her a ride. And there's something about Leona that pulls his interest, and he is determined to not like believe in love. He sees it as a weakness, and he's pretty mad at his family for basically abandoning him, and he's just like owes all his loyalty to the Falcone brothers who rescued him when he was like dumped in the Bratva territory. But his relationship with Leona, it kind of challenges his loyalties. That's why it's called Twisted Loyalties. But anyway, I really liked it up until the very end, because Leona makes some interesting decisions in regards to her parents that I felt like it was kind of like an Arya move. And at one point in the book, Fabiano does tell Leona, like, you know, you remind me of my sister Arya. I'm like, yeah, she just pulled a total Arya move, and I kind of wanted to punch her in the throat for it, but whatever. It all works out, and I really did like this book. I gave it 4 stars. It could have been a 5-star. Like, if she didn't act like that in the end, it could have been a 5-star. It was beautiful. I loved it up until the end. Anyway, then we have Twisted Emotions, which is Nino and Kiara's book, and it was beautiful. So Kiara is part of the Familia. She is in Luca's territory. The Kimura and Luca want to have peace. Temporary. Everyone like wants peace, but they know it's never gonna last. But anyway, they do it by marriage. So Kiara is one of the high-ranking daughters, but like nobody actually wants to give their daughter to a Kimura because they like have a crazy reputation. And Nino especially is supposed to be like a man with like without emotions. And Kiara is an orphan. Her father was terrible, and then she lived with her aunt and uncle, and another one of her uncles sexually abused her when she was young. So she is very traumatized. She has a lot of PTSD from that. And on their wedding night, when Nino finds out that she was abused, his reaction is the best thing ever. And this scene, because like Jen was the one who recommended Cora Riley to me, and this is how she sold me on all of the series. How she sold me on Born in Blood and how she sold me on Kimura was by describing this scene and what the hero does for the heroine, what Nino does for Kiara, and I was just like, I need to read these books. So this scene was just so perfect, and I loved it. And I really love when Kiara goes to Las Vegas. She's part of like the traditional families, and so they're very rigid, very proper. Girls are sheltered and whatever. She goes to the Kimura, and they're like crazy cage fighters. They all live in the same mansion. They're just like rude, and they like curse, and they're just like crazy. Just crazy. It's almost like a frat house in there. But Nino is so patient with Kiara. He does not pressure her at all, and they're just the perfect match. I love this story. It was my favorite one of all time that Cora Riley has written, and I gave this one 5 stars. It was beautiful. Next story is Ramos, and Ramo is the head of the Falcone clan, head of the Kimura, and he has a brilliant idea that he's going to abduct Serafina, who is part of the outfit, which is Dante's territory in Chicago, because he doesn't like the way that Dante's been acting. So he's like, you know what? I feel like causing some mess, because this is just how Ramo is. So he kidnaps Serafina, and he has like grand plans on just like pushing Dante's buttons by like videoing Serafina, showing like, you know, if you don't do this, I'll do this to her or whatever. But then he starts like, Serafina doesn't react to all of this in the way that he expects. Serafina is a spitfire, and she's smart, and I love her as a heroine so much. She just throws Ramo off his game, and they are sexually attracted to each other, and this is a very interesting relationship. I love the way that it plays out. I love how there's a lot of pride going on, which is why this is called Twisted Pride, but for them to not admit their feelings, because again, captor-captive situation, it's such a hard road to tread when you're the captive and you're kind of falling in love with your captor. And it's like, she's such a strong character, and she's like, well, obviously I'm not going to put my heart on the line. So it's very interesting how the relationship develops. I love the drama in this book so much. It was so freaking great. 5 stars for Ramo and Serafina. Then there's Twisted Bonds, which is a second book for Nino and Kiara. It's just the continuation of their love story. You get some of Twisted Pride and Kiara's point of view, and I really liked it because as someone who was a survivor of sexual assault, she's very bothered by Ramo kidnapping Serafina, and you get her point of view in all this. You see her a lot in Twisted Pride, but you get like her way of thinking and how Nino has to deal with that. And I really loved it, and I really do love her and Ramo's relationship as like brother and sister-in-law. I just like really love it. It's just so sweet. So anyway, I love this book. 4.5 stars for this one. Then I read Twisted Hearts, and no. This is Savio and Gemma's book. It's an I'm in love with my brother's best friend romance. Savio and Diego are best friends, and this is an age gap as well. And Gemma is just so obvious in her crush, and I never felt like the emotions in the relationship, especially on Gemma's part, was anything more than just like, you know, that girlhood crush where it's like, oh, what a cute boy, and like, I'm gonna marry him one day. Very like infantile. And that's how I felt like how she felt for Savio, because Savio is this huge man whore, and I don't know what she saw in him other than he was attractive and he was funny sometimes. I like did not get the appeal for Savio. He like barely softened for Gemma. He was an asshole. I wanted her to like get her head out of her ass so bad. And she also came from a very traditional family, like way traditional. It was like saving yourself for marriage, no kissing, no alone time with boys. You have to dress very conservatively, and she was very into all that, which is why, again, I'm like, why are you attracted to Savio? He's literally the opposite of all that. Of everything that your family respects, Savio is literally the opposite. I never felt like Savio respected Gemma, and the only reason why I feel like they came together in the end was because there was a very unfortunate circumstance that happened, and it was just like, I almost felt like he was with Gemma out of pity, so I did not believe this romance, and I freaking hated it. I did not like this book. I want to give it 2 stars, maybe 2.5, but it was bad. I did not like it. Nope. But I am really excited for Adamo's book, which is the last Falcone brother. So we'll see how that goes. I hope it's one of the ones that I love, because Adamo, he's been going through some stuff in the background, and I just can't wait to see how his love story plays out. I can't wait to see who his love interest is. I don't want to know. Like, I just want to, this is one of those instances where I'm like, I'm already in the world. I'm already going to read it. And so I'd just rather be surprised. And so that's what's going to happen. Okay, and then now we're in the territory. All weekend I should have been reading the historical romances, but I was reading all these books. And then I finally was like, okay, now that you've gotten to this point, you still have Bound by the Past, you still have Born and Bound by Blood, but you really need to start reading some historicals. So I jumped into reading them. I picked up To Seduce a Sinner by Elizabeth Hoyt, and this is the second book in her, I want to say it's like Wounded Soldier or something. Legend of the Four Soldiers. So I really like this book. It's very interesting. Jasper is left at the altar, and Melisande is this woman who's kind of been admiring him from afar, and she sees this as her chance because he needs to get married, and she's just like, well, why not me? This is my opportunity. So she just approaches him and be like, hey, you were jilted at the altar. Literally like 30 minutes after he's jilted. She's like, I'll marry you. And he's just like, why not? That's how the relationship starts off, and she is trying to desperately hide that this is her absolute dream, is to be married to Jasper, that she is kind of in love with him. So she has to kind of act aloof, and I really loved it. And then Jasper's on a quest for vengeance. He was in a war, and a lot of bad things happened to his fellow soldiers, and he feels like he needs to find this traitor because he recently found out that the only way that they could have been captured is there had to be a traitor in his midst. So it's like a lot of mystery, and I really like that. Sorry, I had to move my camera. It was not, I had to, yeah, anyway. I moved. And then this book perfectly sets up To Beguile a Beast, which is the next book in the series. I didn't realize when I selected this book that it was part of the same series as To Beguile a Beast, and To Beguile a Beast has been on my list for forever. I just realized like I never even like showed you guys the cover. I'm gonna have to go back and go put a digital copy of it. But anyway, I really enjoyed this book. It was my favorite from the readathon, and I gave it 4.5 stars, so rounded up to 5. Then I read Slippery Creatures by KJ Charles, and this was more on like the mystery side of things. Think like kind of like Sherlock Holmes, detective. There's like some goings on that Will Darling, our main character, gets roped into after he inherits his bookstore from his uncle who recently passed away. And this entire series is going to be a slow burn romance. So there's no HEA at the end of this book. And it's like, I don't even know if I like the other love interest, Kim, because he's so secretive, he's so mysterious. So I am curious. I'm going to read the second one, and hopefully that relationship develops. And even though the relationship and the romance I feel like didn't develop, there was lots of sexy scenes. So it was hot, it was steamy. It was not without steamy moments. It was just like the emotion wasn't there quite yet. But it's because we have no idea what Kim's motivations are. But I really did enjoy this. This was my first book by KJ Charles, and I really liked it. I listened to the audio. The audio was fantastic. I think the best audiobook that I've listened to. I love the narrator so much. Even though I had to slow it down a lot because of the accents that he was doing, it was just beautiful. I like could listen to his voice all day. So 4 stars for Slippery Creatures, just because I wanted it to develop a little bit more emotional things, but the mystery was interesting. Next I read Rebel, which is the first book in Beverly Jenkins' Women Who Dare, but this book ties into the Levesque family. And the Levesque family isn't its own like series. You can go look up and see the reading order of the Levesques, because I have read Captured, which is like this hero's great-great-grandparents, but the way that it's written is kind of written all over the place, because Raymond, which is his brother, was the first Levesque book ever written, like decades ago. Anyway, I need to go back and go read all the Levesque families, so Raymond is heavily featured in this one. But our hero Drake, he's very swoony. But the highlight of this book was Valinda, the heroine. She was so badass. I loved her. She came from New York because she was, she's a teacher, and she's teaching freed slaves how to read and write. And there's a situation in the beginning of the book that she handles so beautifully, and I love it. And she is a little down on her luck, and she turns to Drake, who they meet because she was about to be assaulted, and he saves her. And so she starts leaning on the Levesque family, and I love how open they are. They just like welcome her with open arms, just like, you need help, we're gonna help you. It was just, I love the sense of family. It was just beautiful. I loved it so much. There are some heavy racial tensions in this book, but I think that Beverly Jenkins does very well to make the romance the prominent part of the story, so that I wasn't like too depressed while I was reading it. A lot of the situations in this book sadly reflect with like real life events, so that made it a little bit more depressing. But anyway, I try not to get bogged down when I think about that. But it's kind of hard not to. But I really did enjoy this book. 4 stars for Rebel. Then I read The Raven Prince by Elizabeth Hoyt. And this was a widow and widower romance. Both of them have experienced loss in their life. And Anna is also, she needs to pick up a job because her husband didn't really leave her with a lot of money. And it's her and her mother-in-law. They're fending for herself. I love the relationship between Anna and her mother-in-law. It was very sweet. I really loved it. Because her relationship with her husband, she was in love with him when she first married him, but he cheated on her, and it's kind of left her emotionally scarred. And then we have the actual scarred hero. Edward is an earl, and he's kind of like this recluse. He's like very into agriculture, and he needs a secretary. Anna ends up by being his secretary. She's like secretly hired by his like butler or whatever, or his solicitor. I can't remember. But he has smallpox scars, and so like he definitely has like some body image issues. He thinks he's ugly because of some past things that happened with his wife, and so I just really love this romance. It was actually really sweet. There was some drama toward the end that I was just like, oh, if you would just like talk to each other, just talk it out, it would be so much better. But it also kind of reminded me of a Lorraine Heath book, Falling into Bed with the Duke, because Anna does do something interesting at a brothel that involves Edward, and it kind of reminded me of that book. So I really did like this one. 4 stars for The Raven Prince. This is the start of a series in itself. I think it's like The Princes or something like that. I don't know who's the second book. I'm gonna have to go look it up. I have a lot of Lorraine Heaths I have a lot of Elizabeth Hoyts that I still need to read. Then I read The Day of the Duchess, and I don't have the physical copy anymore because I already gave it to somebody who I thought would enjoy this book, because I DNF'd this book at 45%. It just was not for me. I didn't enjoy the characters. There was no connect for me with them, and if I don't enjoy the characters and then I'm not interested in the plot, it's just very hard for me to force myself to read it any further. And I know I'm not enjoying it. It's not going to get a good rating for me. The highest it would probably get would be 3 stars, and that would be like a begrudging 3 stars because Sarah McLean is a good, like, her style of writing is very good. I didn't like the format. I didn't like the back and forth between present and like their past, because this is a married couple. They have a marriage in trouble. And it was just like, it wasn't an enjoyable read for me. So I DNF'd this book because I didn't want to get into a book slump. And I just discovered that I admire Sarah McLean as a person. I love the way she talks about books. I love her podcast. I think she's a wonderful human being, but I just don't enjoy her books in the same way that a lot of people do. So I'm just going to stop trying to force myself to read Sarah McLean's and just like be like, I like her, but I don't really enjoy her books. So I'm just not going to waste any more money on them, because I did purchase the paperback and I purchased the audio. I might even have the ebook. I was like determined to like it, but you can't force yourself to like a book. So anyway, I DNF'd this book. Then I re-listened to The Heart of Obsidian by Nalini Singh, because that was our Last Sight Changeling review for the month of January, and I love this book so much. Caleb and Sahara, they're just so beautiful. Very alpha man, very like, I will destroy the world for you. And it's just like, you were not sure if Caleb had a heart, but Sahara is his heart, and it was beautiful. I didn't really enjoy the narrator. It's the same one for Brandon by Fire, but for some reason I enjoyed the narration of Brandon by Fire from Riley and Mercy when I was listening to the audiobook much more than the Heart of Obsidian one. It was just felt very like robotic, the reading of it. I don't know. Anyway, I enjoyed the book, wasn't a fan of the audio, strangely. And then I started Love Unexpected by QB Tyler, and this was for the Taboo Romance Book Club. And this is the second book by QB Tyler that I tried to read. I read Forget Me Not, and I rage read it at one point, so I gave that book 2 stars, and I did not like it. But then I was like, I'll give her another chance, because this is like taboo romance, very interested in it. But I DNF'd this book pretty early on. The setup just didn't work for me. It felt too fast. I did not like the heroine at all. She felt too immature for this situation, for the huge age gap, for the traumatic events that happened to jump into this romance, this very taboo, forbidden romance. I was just like, it was too unbelievable to like enjoy the tabooness of it, because that's part of the appeal for reading taboo. It's like the excitement that like, oh, this is like not supposed to happen, this is wrong, but it's like you can't stop reading. But I didn't feel any of that. I was just like, it's not working for me. The setup just doesn't work for me, and I don't know if I'll try another QB Tyler. I kind of feel like 3 is my like limit, so maybe I'll try one more, because I know a lot of people like QB Tyler and I want to as well. Like, I feel like I'm missing out when I don't like the same authors that other people like. But then I don't want to keep wasting my time and then like regretting it after I do another book. So just maybe one more. So I barely read this book. If you read this book, I DNF'd after the funeral scene, and I was just like, this heroine's a little TSTL and I don't like it. And yeah, anyway. Then I read Not My Match by Ilsa Madden Mills. I always want to call her Isla. Whenever I see it, I see Isla, and Ilsa is just not a common name, but I need to get that right. Work on it. So anyway, this is the second book in her Game Changers series, and this series is based set in Tennessee, and the heroes are football players. At first, it was a while back that I read Not My Romeo, and I didn't get it at first, but then I realized as I was reading that the heroine Giselle was the sister of the heroine from the first one, and I did not like the sister when I was reading the first one, because Giselle like dated her sister's ex. He actually cheated on, oh my god, what was her name? Elena? Cheated on her with Giselle. And then, so Giselle seemed like a too stupid to live character, but she was very quirky, very interesting. She was a physicist, but she liked to write science fiction romance. She liked to write like alien men, and I was just like, I was so enjoying it because I love science fiction romance. I love alien romances. And the pairing with Devin. So Devin pretty much set himself to like look out for Giselle while her sister and Devin's best friend are on their honeymoon. And Giselle kind of has like this birthday curse, and every year for her birthday stuff starts going wrong. And so like her apartment that she was renting, one of the other tenants had like a fire start in like the basement or whatever, and so she couldn't live there. So she moves in with Devin, and so it's like kind of a roommate situation. Definitely opposites attract, and Devin is emotionally scarred from a past relationship. He feels like everyone leaves him. He had a very rocky home life. His father's an alcoholic, and his mother just kind of left him, and he feels like everybody leaves him. And like my heart broke for Devin so much. But he was also trying to like help Giselle get back into the swing of things, basically saying, she's not for me. She's so smart. She's gonna want to leave me anyway for somebody more her vibe, because she keeps dating these like nerdy people who are on her wavelength. But her and Devin have so much chemistry, and I really did enjoy their relationship. Even as Giselle kind of annoyed me sometimes, she was just like, would worm her endearing little way into your heart. So I liked it. 4 stars for this book. It wasn't the best by Ilsa Madden Mills that I've read, but I really did enjoy this book, and I enjoy a good sports romance. Okay, so that's all the books that I read this past week. Quite a bit. I'm pretty proud of myself, but I wouldn't expect for this amount of books to continue for each week. I'm gonna slow down a lot, just letting you guys know. All right guys, if you liked today's video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure that you subscribe to get notified of any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, life's better with little HEA. Bye guys.